I'm Bill Hardenrader here, co-author of the upcoming book, Love, Forgive, Never Give Up, here with the 33 Days of Love Challenge, where I interview an author and an expert on how love impacted their life so you could take someone away and start practicing more love in your life today. Today I have Andrea Nakayama. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Bill. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Oh, this is awesome. So I'm going to read Andrea's bio, and then she's going to tell a powerful story that's impacted me as well. So we'll get into her bio. Functional nutritionist and educator, Andrea Nakayama leads thousands of clients, students, and practitioners around the world in a revolution focused on reclaiming ownership over one's own health. Through Replenish PDX, she helps chronically ill people chart their path to recovery, and in her School for Practitioners, Holistic Nutrition Lab, she teaches clinicians the science and art of a functional nutrition practice. Andrea is a co-producer of the Hashimoto's Institute, has been featured in O Magazine and Martha Stewart's Whole Living, and her passion for food as personalized medicine was born from the loss of her young husband to a brain tumor in 2002. And Andrea is now regularly consulted as a nutrition expert on medical teams for the toughest clinical cases in the practices of world-renowned doctors. So, Andrea, I'm going to turn it over to you for just let us share your story with us, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm excited to be here and talk about love and forgiveness and really how this impacts our lives. And what I want to do today is share a story that I've actually never publicly shared before. So we'll see how that goes. It's one that touches me, and it will likely touch all of us in listening to it. So in 1998, September of 1998, I had the great privilege of marrying my soulmate. And it was a magical day. I think it was still one of the very best days in my life. And my then husband and I had been together for 5 years prior. We just had a deep, really an intense connection to each other that was so meaningful and powerful to me and changed my life then and would continue to do so. A year and a half later, he was diagnosed with a brain tumor when I was just 7 weeks pregnant. So we were in our first pregnancy. We hadn't even announced our pregnancy to anybody. And he received this diagnosis really just after days, very, very intense headaches. A rare situation, and also rare for a man in his 30s in those days. It's more common for young men to be diagnosed with this particular type of brain tumor. It's called a glioblastoma multiforme. It's a grade 4 tumor, and most people don't live beyond 6 months. So the goal of the doctors was to try to keep him alive to see our son born. So he was alive to see our son born. Gilbert was born in December of 2000, and Isamu lived almost 2.5 years past his diagnosis. And the story I want to tell today is the story of the night or the early morning that Isamu died, because it changed my life forever in a really beautiful and impactful way. Yeah. So on July 4th, Isamu stopped being able to speak. And at this point, he was already losing a lot of motor ability. So he couldn't really walk alone. He was having trouble holding his head up. But he was able to communicate, and on that day he stopped being able to speak. Nothing would come out. It's called expressive aphasia. And that afternoon he had a grand mal seizure and was admitted to the hospital for a week, where we learned that really there was no good course of action. If we pursued further treatment or if we didn't, he probably had about 2 weeks to live. So we were coming to terms with that in the face of him not really being able to speak. Every so often, as intellectual and deliberate as he was, a full statement would come out of his mouth, but otherwise he couldn't express himself in words at all. So, really the intensity of the love of just really through eye contact, through holding hands, through holding each other, being together in that experience. After a week in the hospital, I brought him home, and I set up a hospital bed here in the room that is now my office, right in this spot where my desk is. And I had him here, and that way we could be with him. His brother was here, his parents came in, my parents came in for the weekends, and everybody would be able to visit him and give him privacy in this room as well. And Isamu spent most of his time just looking out the window at the light. Again, he couldn't move and he couldn't express himself. Now, Gilbert was about 19 months at this time, our son, and he was used to sleeping in bed with his mama and his dad, and that was upstairs, and he already had the difference of dad not being there for a week. So I felt very split. Where do I spend my time? Do I spend all my time with Isamu downstairs or upstairs with Gilbert? So my nights were very fractured. I would put Gilbert to bed in our bed, and then I would wait till he was falling asleep or fallen asleep, and then I'd come downstairs and be with Isamu, and then I'd go back, and his brother and I would rotate our time, and we also had a hospice nurse's assistant here in the wee hours of the night. So on this night, that was really the end, I was doing that routine of going back and forth and back and forth. And at some point I came down and Isamu's body was getting cold. His head was still warm, but his extremities were getting cold. And I knew instinctually that this was the end. So I was doing my thing, but having a hard time really staying in my bed with my son. I kept coming downstairs. And at a certain point, when I went back upstairs, I lay down on my back, and all of a sudden I started to hear music, singing, loud, I guess not loud, but like soft, very resonant voices. And I had no explanation for this. I'm a, atheist, raised Jewish girl. This didn't make sense to me at all. And it made me really uncomfortable. And so at a certain point, I questioning and in my head, not my heart, tried to get up. I was like, okay, I got to go downstairs again. And I literally could not move. My body just was pinned to the bed. So I acquiesced and I stayed there, and the voices stayed. And at a certain point, I felt Isamu's body right on top of mine, straddling my body, staying there for a moment, and then it melded right into my own body. And I accepted that. And remember, Isamu couldn't move. He couldn't speak. He was downstairs in the bed, and I was having this experience that I still can't make sense of. And it can't be, I can't left brain analyze it. So I accepted that and I fell asleep. And after a while, I went downstairs to Isamu, and he was taking last loud gasping breaths. There would be a breath and then a long wait, and then another breath and then a long wait. And I just sat down with him on the bed and held his hand, put my other hand on his heart. And I told him it was okay to go, that it was okay. He could just release and let go. So in that moment of sitting there with him and in looking back at it and the whole experience, I don't know how I knew what to do. I was in my mid-30s. I had never midwifed somebody to their death and loved them enough to say it's okay to go. But I knew how to do it. Something in me, something instinctual, something deeper than what I had learned in my 30-something years, knew where to go. And for me, that was love. It was pure love. And it was the next really magical day in my life.
Wow. Well, I mean, thank you for sharing that. I've heard some of your story before, not that with what you share. So it takes courage and trust and generosity to share that with me and with people who are watching this. So I mean, the focus was on you when you were talking, but I was tearing up a few times throughout. And so I love that you found strength not by being strong, but you found strength by going within, by trusting your instincts. Is that kind of what happened?
Absolutely. I mean, it really is also about putting ego aside. So in the walk up to that day of him leaving, my mantra was, this time isn't about me. My time will come later to grieve. This is his time. This is his journey. And if I can accompany him on his journey, that is true love. And he loved me right back through that by allowing me to walk with him. So I moved in a place that I think of as between the worlds, which again, I have no rationale for, but I feel so lucky to have traversed. So together we moved through this fabric of life and death and this area that exists in between. And I did that by, not grasping, no, I don't want him to die. There was no way that this was going in any other direction. So it was very obvious to me that this part right there was his journey, and my job was to walk by his side.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And so what have you taken from that? Obviously you've done a lot, you've helped a lot of people. But can you take something from that? Have you taken something from that and applied that in your day-to-day life? Is there some way you look at the world differently?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, it changed my life forever. That experience changed my life forever. I remember when I started to pursue this career change to work with people, and my uncle asked me, won't it be horrible to work with people who are at that place of life and death? And I thought, there's nothing that I would be more privileged to do than to be with people in that place. I now work with people who are more chronically ill than acutely ill. And for me, I think of that as purgatory. It's this place where we can't get back to the life we think of as life, and it's not necessarily death. And it's this extended place that, again, I have the honor to sit with people in that, shift that terrain for them, and also help them to see the blessings. But the lesson that I think, I really took away and that I hope to share with everybody is that sometimes we have to step out of, we have to shut up, basically, get out of our own way and tune in to our instincts, what our body is telling us. And this is what I tell people to do with their own bodies. You have to shut up and listen. I call it nonviolent communication with self, right? Because we know about nonviolent communication where you're working with a partner and you have to be quiet and hear what they have to say. We've stopped doing that with our physiological bodies, but we've also stopped doing it with our spiritual bodies. We don't really take the time to listen to what our bodies are telling us. So my giveaway, my really lesson for everybody is to step back, to shut up, to listen in, because there's so many lessons that this beautiful vessel in all its manifestations, whether it's spiritual or biological, it's telling us all the time.
Wow. And that's a good lesson. That's a great lesson. And we could talk. I've been saying this a lot at entities. We can go on and on. We really could, but we're keeping the 33 Days of Love Challenge series shorter, around the 10-minute mark. So I want to thank you again for sharing your story, for sharing your time. We're going to feature Andrea Nakayama on our upcoming book, Love, Forgive, Never Give Up. We're going to post all of Andrea's links below this video so you can find out more about her. She's going to be featured in the book. The book's called Love, Forgive, Never Give Up. Go to loveforgivenevergiveup.com to find out more about the book, and come back for future videos in the 33 Days of Love Challenge series. So that's it for us. Andrea, I want to thank you again so much for your time. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much, and good luck with everything. It's very exciting.
All right, thank you so much, and we'll see you all on the next video. Take care.